Hello, my loves. Continue to update new stories on Reddit, and don't forget if you like it, please subscribe and like it. Now let's start new stories. Short story about the first boy I fell in love with. The stupor of the summer heat brought me a sense of comfort as I stared off into the sunset, sitting on top of my friend's roof. The distant sounds of cars rolling by softly drummed in my ears. I could hear my other friends laughing. The joy in their voices was almost palpable to the touch. As a smile crept on my face, in that moment, I yearned for nothing than for that moment to never end. A cool breeze swept over my face as if it were a signal from the sun itself that it was now receding over the horizon, an au revoir to a beautiful day. Oranges and purples turned into cool blues and deep violets as the silver-tinged moon rose over the now dark skyline. I had seen him earlier that day. His handsome face, tall frame, and messy brown hair bounced as he ran past the house I was staying at. "I'll see you later," he said as he ran by. I wish I could relive the almost celestial feeling that those words gave me. Drops of dopamine. Surges of serotonin. Those words were electrifying. As I reminisced over those emotions on the roof, we began filing one by one out of the window and towards the local pizza restaurant. We walked through the humid summer night air, laughing and joking with each other. During that whole time, I could only think of him. Was it the aura of his confidence that seemed to bring me under his enchanting gaze? Or was it his gleaming white smile that could pierce even those darkest of cloudy days? Whatever the reason, my heart raced with excitement at the thought of seeing him later that night. We grabbed the largest pizza the place had to offer. The pizza was almost too big and burdensome to carry back to the house, but we took turns, shoving the piping hot box into each other's arms like it was a game of hot potato. Once we got back, we immediately went over to the back porch where the soft yellow glow of the lights illuminated the cozy backdrop of our new hangout spot. Time blurred away as we got lost in conversation. The sounds of crickets. The soulful sounds of a genuine deep laugh. I could see the memories in front of me already being burned into my mind. The joy I felt being among them was inexplicable. But as I checked the time on my phone, I realized it was finally time for the meeting I had been longing for since I had arrived in town. It was time for him. I took one final sip from my can, gave my friends the most exuberant hug I could give, and stepped down from the balcony. The moon cast its ghostly pale blue rays down on the sidewalk as I turned the corner to his place. It almost felt like it was trying to reassure me as my heart drummed in my chest. Before I could have time to consider the doubt that was slowly creeping into my mind, he opened the door. There he was, just as stunning as before. His blue eyes were still luminescent and bright in the darkness of the night. He offered me his hand, and like instinct, I reached out to grab it. As we sat there in his bed, we talked on and on for hours about whatever nonsense we had decided to land on. I tried my best to do anything to make him laugh. That beaming smile that could melt even the iciest of hearts. This boy had enchanted me, a feeling that I had never felt in my life before. The scariest thing was that I was completely fine with him conquering my every desire and fear. Never had someone so easily comforted me and brought me into a place of absolute trust. As the night rushed by, we lay down side by side. His face nuzzled my neck as he threw his arms over my chest. I knew he could feel the rapid thumps coming from my chest. The heat radiated from my face as he kissed me gently on my neck and ears. I turned over to him, looking into his eyes. It was like an ocean, one where you could look out from the shoreline and get lost in the waves that twinkled in the hot summer sun. I was completely engulfed with desire, a longing for someone so strong that for a moment, I knew nothing more than what it was like to be with him. He brought me in closer, sliding me so that my chest met his, our legs wrapped together. I knew he could see the burning flames of passion in his eyes when he kissed me. The sounds of 1,000 fireworks burst in my heart as he held me close and kissed every part of my body. A euphoria that no drug could ever even dream of buying. He grabbed the towel and laughed as he gently wiped away at my face. There it was again, that ever-brilliant smile. He jumped back into bed and lay directly beside me. The conversation continued just as quickly as it had before. Hours turned into seconds when I was with him. In the one moment when the room fell silent, I laid my head back against his chest and stared at the window as the moon's comforting light fell directly to our feet. "I never want this night to end," I blurted. "Me either, this is everything I could have ever wished for," he replied. I embraced him, millions of neurons firing in my brain telling me to never let him go. As we fell asleep together, the moon outside the window bid me one last goodnight as its brilliant platinum beams began to fade to the dawn of a new day. Golden filtered rays splashed through the windows when I woke up that morning. The air conditioner hummed silently in the background as I peeled freshly washed covers off the air mattress I had slept on the night before. I stood up, smirking as I looked back at the air mattress. At least it was only temporary, I thought as I stretched and glanced around the newly minted room that I would call home for the next year. Flurries of little butterflies danced in my stomach and chest when I thought about his arrival that day. I stepped out into the living room, the cool touch of the hardwood embracing my feet as I stepped to the balcony windows. The view was breathtaking, almost as beautiful as his soft blue eyes. The mountains shimmered in the morning sun, fog draping the distant skyline. I walked back over to the kitchen and opened the almost empty fridge. I smiled. I just couldn't help but think of him as I prepared for the busy day ahead of me. My parents met me at my door no more than an hour after I had opened my eyes. I embraced them, excited to unfold another chapter in my life. We toured the town. The sights and sounds which were familiar to me, but foreign in their eyes. I stepped out of the car in the blazing summer sun, its unrelenting heat bearing down on my white t-shirt. Just this one last task before I can see him, I thought. It was hours before me, and my father finally brought the bed back to my apartment. I gave my father a hearty high five. It was finally complete. Everything was in place, from my desk to my newly placed bed in the corner where the air mattress was this morning. I hugged my parents one last time as they walked through the door to bid their goodbyes. Phew. I swiped the beads of sweat on my forehead as I walked back to my room. I stood in front of my fan, soaking in its icy cold breeze. My phone rang in the corner. It was him. My heart skipped a beat as I stared down at the luminescent screen. He was close, only 30 minutes away. Excitement filled every vein of my body at the thought of seeing him, but in that state? I stripped away my sweat-stained clothes and jumped in the shower. The knock on the door rang throughout the empty apartment as I dried my hair in the bathroom. Shit. Fuck. I dropped the towel, pulled on my clothes, and walked over to the door. I could hear my heart thumping in my ears as I reached out to the door handle. I looked through the peephole. It was him. I pulled the door open. He was just as beautiful as from the last time I had seen him. His tousled soft brown hair blew gently in the summer breeze. An oversized t-shirt draped his lean frame. The veins in his arms softly pushing from under his skin would make even the fittest bodybuilders jealous. He only caught a second glimpse of my still wet complexion before I ran into his arms for a hug. His smell was intoxicating when I kissed his neck. A sense of total euphoria flooded over me when I finally looked into his sky-blue eyes. He gazed happily at me when I finally let him go and pulled him into my apartment. I ran around the still empty living room, showing him my new home. He set his things down on the ground and walked over to the window with the views that I had just taken in this morning. The sun's rays bounced off his eyes as he stared off into the distance. I came behind him and gave him a full-bodied hug. I nuzzled my head against his neck, my face fitting perfectly into the groove of his shoulder where his collarbone jutted out. "I missed you so much," I said. "I missed you even more." He turned around from his gaze and looked into my eyes before landing a perfectly placed kiss on my lips. My heart almost exploded with joy. I closed my eyes, brilliant flashes of color erupting in my mind as he pulled me closer to him. His chest, his stomach, his legs brushed up against my own body as I felt myself being drawn into him. At that moment, all I wanted was him. There was nothing more I could want as he pulled back from the kiss and brushed a stray hair out of my face. I led him over to my room, pride beaming from my smile as I showed him around. He pointed at the bed. I laughed, explaining my and my father's struggle to haul its bulky frame up the slender staircase outside. He jumped on it and lay down. He opened his arms, signaling for me to come to him. I flew into his arms and he instinctively closed them around me as we embraced. He kissed my forehead, my cheeks, and then my lips. At least it's not the air mattress, he mused before pulling his shirt off and throwing it aside. I laughed. It still would have been comfy, I quipped. With you in it, I know it would have been, he said. Now, kiss me. Come on. Get up, the sun has been out for hours now. I jabbed at him as he was lying down beside me on my bed. I watched as little dust particles danced in the afternoon sun coming in from my window. The light bounced off his messy brown bed hair, his face flush with blissful peace as he snored gently into my pillow. I couldn't stay mad at him. Instead of giving him another playful push, I laid back down and draped his arms over me. He instantly pulled me in closer, flutters of butterflies swirling around my chest and stomach as he did so. I heard the soft rustle of the branches outside, and the sweet sounds of the birds chirping away as I drifted back to sleep in his arms. I woke up to him now awake playing with my hair. Finally. He joked. Finally? I was the one trying to get you up, you sleepyhead. I remarked back to him. He gave a light push, and I shoved playfully back at him. He laughed, the sound seemingly bending my cheeks upwards into a smile as I looked back up into his eyes. Come on. We got to get some food, I'm starving. I pleaded. Okay, fine, let's get going then, princess. I punched him in the shoulder, and he wrestled me back onto the bed. I tried to maneuver him off of me, but when he wrapped his hands around mine and pushed them back behind my head, my arms and legs went silent. He looked down at me, and at that moment, it felt as if I had melded into the bedsheets. We stayed there for a second, the world revolving around us as we stared into each other's eyes. I felt a strong primal urge claw its way to my consciousness. I lunged up from under his grip and landed a kiss on his lips. He let my hands go and cupped my face. We embraced each other, our bodies intertwined in the afternoon light. I kissed his neck with the fires of what felt like a million burning suns. I had never loved someone in this way before. I love you, I said. The words slipped out my lips as I looked down at him. I love you, too. This was the first time we had heard those three little words muttered. The current of emotions that ripped through my body was almost unbearable. I loved this brown-haired boy more than anything in the world. Everything in my life almost faded away in significance when I compared it to him. The sun had finally set by the time we stepped out of the apartment. He placed his arm over my shoulder as we walked down the stairs to his car. We were meeting up with his friend later to hang out. I was very much looking forward to meeting her. I could almost see the enthusiasm in his voice as he was describing her to me. He was excited for me to meet one of his friends, another look into the beautiful life of the boy I loved. As we got into the car, he slipped his hands into mine from the driver's seat and looked into my eyes. The beating, unrelenting heat of the summer sun. The blissful symphony of crickets in the evening air. Everything in my life faded away into irrelevance as I sat there in the front seat, whipped up by the swirling whirlpools of love. She was going to meet us at the library that was under construction just a little ways away from my apartment. We stopped by the volleyball court. The sun had set by then, but the air still carried with it the heat of the day. As we played around in the sand, I wanted nothing but to capture this moment on film. It was so simple, just me and this boy. I stood there, staring up at the night sky. The twinkling stars and glittering silver moon gestured their approval as I ran in to give him a bear hug. I nuzzled my head into his chest, his hands wrapping around mine and fingers running through my hair. He laughed gleefully, pushing me back and knocking me down into the sand. As he lay on top of me and covered my back and his arms, time slowed. His piercing blue eyes looked into mine. He lowered his head to kiss me, and I swear, it felt as though the sand would swallow me. I could not imagine anything else in the world that could make me happier. Simply being in his presence made me whole. Before we got too carried away, we remembered the reason why we were here in the first place. His friend walked over to us, enthusiastically calling out his name and waving over to me. "Hi," she exclaimed. "It's so nice finally getting to meet you. He's been raving about you." "Has he now?" I replied. I smirked and looked over to him. I could see even in the darkness of the night how his cheeks were starting to flush cherry. "Hey, stop it," he yelled back. "Let's get going, shall we?" We traveled up to the library, bright yellow fencing blocking off the entrances. "Maybe we should try the ladder down over there," he suggested. Before we could even get a word of protest in, he started climbing down. He's a brave one, I thought. Without a second thought, I started down after him, and not too long after me, his friend did as well. Once we were inside, we shone our flashlights on the crumpled wallpaper and torn-up floors. How this place was once so beautiful, not just a shell of its former self. Memories of my time in this building flashed before my eyes as we passed once familiar but now empty halls. After a while, we finally found ourselves on the roof. A nice chilly wind blew tufts of his brown hair as we stared over our college campus. I couldn't do anything but admire his tall and lean frame. I felt an invisible string tug me towards him. "Hey! Look over here, you guys," his friend yelled from a distance. Before we could walk over, he grabbed me by the waist and kissed me under the midnight moon. "I love you," he said as he let go of his kiss from my lips. We spent the rest of the night stuck in deep conversation on the top of that roof. When it was time to go home, we bid his friend goodbye. "It was so nice meeting you," I exclaimed. "Hope to see you soon." When we got back, we both splayed on my bed. We were exhausted, but at the very least, we had each other. We embraced, legs intertwined while we faced each other. "Love you," I whispered in his ear. "Love you more," he whispered back, a smirk creeping up on his face. I smiled. I couldn't help it. As we fell asleep in each other's arms, his three little words bounced around in my head as I slowly slipped away into the night's warm embrace. A couple of weeks after our library adventure, he was once again in my apartment. His presence had become a comforting and familiar force in my life. Every time he stood waiting at my front door, I could feel the warmth of his hug, the smell of cologne, and the scruffiness of the stubble on his face. I loved this boy, but happily ever after was never guaranteed. Small disagreements began to grow into full-blown arguments. Simple conversational discourse turned into yelling. But at the end of each one of our fits, we would work out our differences for the sake of once again being in each other's arms. But as time marched forward, the arguments intensified. Emotional turmoil and manipulation was rampant, but my naivety would always triumph at the end of the day. I had never been so in love, nonetheless, with the most handsome boy that I had met thus far. So each time his words tore into my heart, his honeyed apologies would suture the tears back together. Just like a cool wind before a summer thunderstorm, I could once again sense another brewing yelling fit between the two of us as accusations were brought up before us again. What happened, I thought. It was only a few weeks ago that this boy was lying on top of me on the sands of a volleyball court, now ripping into the heart he had once claimed to love. I stormed out of the room, tired of the same remarks. As I walked out to the front steps of my apartment, I could feel the tears rushing into my eyes. I sobbed into my arms. I couldn't take it anymore. I called my friend, the tears flowing down both sides of my face. She tried to comfort me, but the shuddering tears and uncontrollable torrent of emotions made everything she said sound like a muffle. "What do I do?" I weakly asked her. "Don't give up just yet, this always happens in love. You have to work through it, and the two of you will be stronger on the other side," she coaxed. I walked back into my room, he was still sitting on my bed. I climbed into his arms and cried more into his chest. He ran his fingers through my hair, willing me to stop my tears, but I could not find the switch in mind to make them stop. "It's okay," he said. "It's not going to be the end of the world, we just have to figure out what we both want, and that might take some time. But, I still love you." Silence crept from the darkness into my soul. Had I lost him? Was this the last time I would ever see him? A couple more weeks passed before I would see him again, and this time there was this feeling of dread I could feel deep within my bones. A heavy, ironclad sense of regret and wondering of what was going to happen next. We reminisced on the past for a moment, lying in bed enjoying each other's company. But the old proverb of time heals all wounds was not complicit in our case as another bout of yelling began. Each searing remark scorched a mark so significant in my heart that I could feel its strings ripping as I began to cry. "Just leave then," I screamed. "I can't stand it anymore." He began angrily packing his bags, throwing in the clothes that were scattered all across the floor. Regret immediately clawed its way back up my throat, but it was too late. I hugged him from the back, begging him to stay, apologizing for my outburst. But like that, it was done. Not a kiss. Not a hug. Not even a goodbye. As I watched him walk out the front door wearing the gray shorts that I had given him a few nights before, it felt as though the heavens themselves had crashed down from the skies above and put their full weight on my shoulders. I fell to my knees. I guess that was it. As fast as it had started, it had ended so bitterly. Anger. Frustration. Longing. Regret. Guilt. What had gone so wrong? What could I have done better? Was it all my fault? I was so angry, but the sadness that washed over my heart was unbearable. A visceral pain so deep, it felt as though nothing could bring me up from the pit of Tartarus that I had been cast asunder. Goodbye, my brown-haired boy. My first real love, like that, slipped through my fingers. Days blurred together as I lay in bed. The sun's once warming rays burned bright into my tear-ridden eyes as I turned to pull the covers over my head. Every so often, I would grab my phone, hoping to see a new message from him, but there was nothing but radio silence. Eventually, I stopped looking altogether and began to get lost in my thoughts. Flashes of our time together would replay on my eyelids when I closed my eyes. His ruffled brown hair. His piercing blue eyes. The first night we met, the beautiful sound of his gleeful laugh. I had lost it all, and it felt like my world as I had known it had disappeared alongside. There was not enough room for my happiness if it meant that I could not be with him. My phone would fall off the shelf, and my friends would call me, worried that I had not left or gone anywhere in so long. What's the point of it all, I thought. How can some people wander throughout their long lives and experience such pain and move on to the next person without a care in the world? Maybe it just wasn't for me. Maybe I wasn't meant to be happy with someone, rather, I would have to march through the monotonous drums of life alone before the comforting embrace of darkness would take me back into its arms. Whatever the case, days turned into weeks before I found the strength within me to return to the world outside of my cocoon. Even then, it felt like I was still a shell of the former self that I was so happy to be when I was around him. Why did my face beam with such happiness then, but now grimaced at the thought of his eyes? I had never really truly known what nothingness felt like until the kiss of summer did nothing to comfort me and the warm breeze seemingly blew through my hollow soul. "Am I okay?" I would ask my friends. "Of course you are," they would respond. That empty and meaningless response. "I'll be okay, I guess." But does the pain ever recede from someone when they have in their possession so many of your firsts? He was my first boy. The first boy I had given everything to. The first person I truly fell in love with, a deep burning passion and desire for another twin soul that for so long I did not believe was possible for me to experience. My first boyfriend. Tears and regret could not buy him back, and no matter how much I tried to reconcile myself over what seemed like such a tremendous loss, the empty void would return and hopelessness would find its place back in my consciousness. I longed for his embrace. I could hear his laugh and see his smile. I imagined the summer night on the volleyball court with him. How nothing in the world mattered when his gleeful laughs rang throughout the sandy courts. How I hugged him tightly, kissing his neck and cheeks as he stared longingly into my eyes. All in an instant, those little moments had vanished from my grasp. And to put it simply, it hurt more than anything. One likes to imagine that heartbreak does not physically hurt, that the descriptions from previous lovers are just over-exaggerated personal manuscripts to describe a more profound primal pain. But when days turned into weeks of treading through the deep abyss of nothingness, the pain of not having him there was all too real. There was this tightness in my chest. It was as if God himself placed his overbearing hands on my rib cage and was crushing unrelentingly to force me to gasp for air. As soon as a memory of him would flash in front of me, a cold and sharp stabbing pain would run down my face and end at my heart. Nothing could have prepared me for that pain. No drug nor anesthetic could possibly remove the deep-rooted emotional turmoil that clawed its way through my body. But just like any other injury, time does heal all wounds. The void would begin to fill with muted colors once again, although now with darker shades of jade replacing the rose-colored tints from before. His face became less and less clear to me as more lovers cycled in and out of my life. He was now just a part of a mosaic of men that I had created as an escape from the pitiful reality that was my romantic affairs. Was I just that emotionally incompetent, or was I simply too naive? Whatever the case, the tears in my heart were clumsily sutured through one-night stands, although some deep residual pains never really subsided. The pain of wanting to be held and loved, but never finding the right person that could hold me in such the same way as he did that night on the volleyball court. The pain of looking over in bed the next morning to be excited to see the face of my lover, but not compared to those ocean blue eyes that once sent an electrifying thrill down my spine every time. You were a lesson, brown-haired boy. And although you left me broken and a ghost of who I was when I was with you, I'm thankful for you and your impact on my life. This final part is an appreciation of you, as the pain you inflicted upon my naive and fragile soul only strengthened my resolve and solidified my identity. And for that, I thank you. I'll always love you for being the keeper of my firsts, but for what it's worth, my love for you has become stale. I have to move on to new ventures, and your chilling eyes can no longer hold me from finding someone who can make me feel loved and accepted for who I am. Goodbye, my first love. Thank you for everything, and I hope for nothing but the best for you. Story: how my 3-year relationship ended and how I acted. So my girlfriend, 42 years old, and I, 40 years old, met in 2020. We started as friends trying to improve our own lives. We met on social media through a company that sells life insurance and home/auto insurance. We really get along. We decided to meet and have a meeting at my house so I could begin the process of starting to work for the company. We had to watch a video and it was so boring. So we kissed throughout the video. One thing led to another and we collided after half an hour. We had fun and were like teenagers who met in a hotel and were bunnies. We went on a date and really had fun together. How wonderful. We talked a bit about moving in together and she was about to go on a business trip, so I offered to watch her house and take care of her cats. To her surprise, she agreed. She was away for a week, so that was great. She scheduled a veterinary exam and the vet said she was on vacation instead of working. I was angry because I would rather go with her if that were true. But that's not true. I called her and she told me she wasn't on vacation. I felt bad, so I sent her flowers and she loved them. She came home for the weekend and took me home. Over the next week, we went back and forth between our homes, and with her schedule, we got busier and busier, so we saw each other less but still talked and texted like crazy. One weekend she had to work the day I got home. She said I could stay the night, but I had to go home. We slept together that night and fell asleep in each other's arms. We woke up and I made breakfast for us both. She was working from home at the time, so we just did our own things. She worked and I cleaned. I guess she liked everything I did, so she invited me to move in that same night. I said yes. We are wonderful together. Over the next year, we were best friends and better lovers. One night we were having sex, and during that moment I felt a little strange. My legs were a bit uncomfortable and tingling. With that came loss of sensation, and I couldn't really get excited, if you know what I mean. I tried to finish like she did and I couldn't. We tried to have sex several times, and sometimes we both got fortune cookies. I also started not feeling it as much there. During that time, I spent more time cuddling. Although I didn't tell her I was trying to make up for the lack of sex. Nothing worked, and I felt less of a man every time we tried to have sex. It got to the point where I felt so bad, I stopped trying and started sleeping on the couch. She felt abandoned, and I tried to explain my feelings. She said she understood, and for a while she did. We gradually drifted apart but still lived together. At this time, my hips, back, and legs were getting worse. I lost my job and had to find another job. I lost those jobs too and started going to a deep dark place that I couldn't escape from. I started therapy and medication. Those medications did not help the physical aspect I was experiencing. It was even worse when I almost forgot that I had a downstairs. I got so bad that I lost the feeling of a full bladder. Back to the end of 2023, when we were both arguing and not meeting each other's needs. Now, a few weeks ago, she decided to break up with me. She said she wanted us to remain friends. I'm okay with that. Not even 24 hours later, she had a boyfriend and was sleeping with him. I'm so hurt. I became really dark and deep. I'm angry, I'm still in love, I'm losing my life. I'm losing my house. I do not know what to do. I don't know where to go. I have never been without a home, and here I lost everything. She and I are like oil and water, cats and dogs, KRYPS and bloods. I found solace at the bottom of a bottle of Jameson. I have no one to talk to but her. She has her friends. My mind is broken and my heart is broken. I have never been so crazy. I actually started talking to myself and answered, no lying. Today, I'm at my dad's one-bedroom apartment. Sleeping on couches and living in boxes. I thank God that I have a roof over my head, but I had to leave my life behind. I had other health problems before the new neurological problems. I'm still angry and still in love. I do not know what to do now. I applied for disability benefits and had to meet with a judge about the matter. Other than that, I don't know what else to do. Story: The First Boy I Loved. Once upon a time, in a small, picturesque town, there was a charming little school where children's laughter filled the air, and dreams were born every day. In this school, there were two students, Emma and Jack, both in the 5th grade. Emma was a bright, cheerful girl with a heartwarming smile and a love for books. Jack, on the other hand, was a shy boy with a passion for drawing and a talent for making people laugh. Their story began on a crisp autumn morning. The school bell had just rung, and students were bustling about, getting ready for class. Emma, carrying a stack of books, tripped over a loose stone on the path and fell, scattering her books everywhere. Jack, who was nearby, rushed to help her. "Are you okay?" Jack asked, offering his hand to help her up. Emma looked up, slightly embarrassed but grateful. "Yes, thank you," she replied, taking his hand. As Jack helped Emma gather her books, they started talking and discovered they had a lot in common. Both loved reading adventure stories and drawing imaginary worlds. From that day on, they became fast friends. Every day after school, Emma and Jack would sit under a large oak tree in the schoolyard, sharing stories and drawing together. Their friendship grew stronger, and they became inseparable. Emma loved how Jack could make her laugh, and Jack admired Emma's intelligence and kindness. One winter afternoon, the school announced a talent show. Emma and Jack decided to participate together. They spent weeks preparing a skit based on their favorite adventure story. Emma wrote the script, and Jack designed the costumes and props. They practiced every day, laughing and encouraging each other. The night of the talent show arrived, and the school auditorium was packed with students, teachers, and parents. Emma and Jack stood backstage, nervously holding hands. "We can do this," Emma whispered, squeezing Jack's hand. Jack nodded, smiling. Together. Their performance was a huge success. The audience laughed and cheered, and Emma and Jack beamed with pride. After the show, they received a standing ovation and a special award for their creativity and teamwork. As they walked home that night, under a sky full of stars, Emma and Jack felt a bond stronger than ever. They knew they had something special, a friendship that would last a lifetime. Years passed, and Emma and Jack grew up. They went to different high schools and then colleges, but they never lost touch. They continued to share their dreams and support each other through life's ups and downs. One summer, after they had both graduated from college, they returned to their hometown for a visit. Walking through the old schoolyard, they found themselves under the same oak tree where their friendship had blossomed. "Remember our talent show?" Jack asked, smiling. Emma laughed. "How could I forget? It was the best night of my life." Jack took a deep breath, gathering his courage. "Emma, there's something I've wanted to tell you for a long time. I think I've loved you since that day we met." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She looked into Jack's eyes and saw the same kindness and warmth that had always been there. "I love you too, Jack," she whispered. Under the old oak tree, where their innocent, school-age love began, Emma and Jack shared their first kiss, sealing a promise of love that had started with a simple act of kindness and had grown into something beautiful and everlasting. And so, their story continued, a testament to the power of friendship and love that started in the heart of a small, picturesque town and blossomed into a lifetime of happiness together. Story: My emotionally abusive ex is making me go crazy, but a part of me still loves him and can't let go. For context, my ex and I were together for a while and it was pretty good until it wasn't. He began getting really upset and would ghost me, as well as constantly telling me that I am making things worse and am always making things weird. I am also one to get insecure really easily, so some of these things may not seem bad for some people, but through an insecure overthinker's lens it's bad. Basically, he blocked me on everything one night and said he needed a break for a month. A month goes by, I sort of forget about him, but he texts me and the emotions come back. He said he's sorry. I forgave him. We sort of start talking again, but it was usually me sending the first text or making the first move. Fast forward to a few days ago, where I was supposed to call him but instead see him calling with his girl BFF that I literally cannot stand. Everything she says is always right to my ex and he is blinded by everything she tells him. He invites me to the call however and I try talking but the said best friend is being dry while he was away from keyboard. And then I just started going quiet as she was only targeting questions towards my ex and pretending that I wasn't there. I end up texting my ex that it's getting a little awkward and I felt as if the girl BFF did not like me. He did not take this very well, and got very mad and told me I'm the one making it awkward and messing everything up, that I'm the problem, etc. And I would believe him every time. This is the kind of things that make me go into panic mode, and then start blaming myself on everything and just overall putting unnecessary pressure on myself. He then kicks me out of the call and just starts calling her and tells me he doesn't want to talk to me and that all I do is make everything worse. I attempted sharing my feelings to him, but all he would do is be sarcastic and say things like, "You completely read my mind since you know everything about everyone," and things like that. And would constantly ask if he could leave the call with me whenever there was a brief pause for him to put his input in. When he wasn't being sarcastic or asking to leave, he would just mumble okay or yeah in the background as a way to rush me through. Literally cried myself to sleep that night. Yes, seems like no big deal. But I have an attachment and a love still going on with my ex, and all my brain does is remember all the good times I had with him and not the other. However, my heart reminds me that I need to get out because I'm putting a lot of weight on my shoulders and letting a man decide my self-worth. Letting go of someone you love is so impossible for me, but I know I have to, but I just can't click the block button and delete him on everything. It's as if something stops me. I really need advice on how to get out on this situation. Story, a kind of sad love story. In May of 2017, I met a girl in game. To protect her identity, we will call her Diana, maybe between the 20th to 25th of May. In the match, I noticed that everyone was saying she was a girl because of a mistake a player made, thinking she was a guy, lol. As the match ended, I went to private message to talk to Diana, just to establish a conversation after what happened. She ended up being a nice girl, to be honest. After 1 hour of talking, we shared various experiences in the game and some opinions about it. It was time to go to bed for both of us, so we said goodbye to each other and disconnected. As some weeks went by, we had already established a kind of friendship between us, a weird one. A lot of things happened during June: my ninth grade graduation, some friendship problems with a friend, depression from leaving high school, my birthday. Really, a lot of problems were in my head at that time. But I really didn't give a f*** about all of that. Until the worst arrived. Diana told me she wanted to tell me something very important and invited me to a private room. After about 30 seconds of uncomfortable silence, she said, "I am worried about something." "About what?" I asked. "I'm getting hospitalized soon." The awkward silence returned, but only for 5 seconds. "When?" "Why?" "Tomorrow, maybe at night. I have heart problems, they are getting worse." "Are you going to be okay?" "I don't know." After she was about to leave, I didn't have much to say, but I dumbly said what I felt for her. "I already know what you are thinking." And just after that, I barely remember her message saying, "I love you too." Weird, isn't it? I'll continue the other part because I need some rest for now. I haven't slept in a while. Teletubby back where I was. After a month and a half knowing us, we started to talk a lot more often. I always told her compliments, to somehow distract her of her problems. Sometimes I skipped classes just to talk to her somewhere else in school. Maybe I was being manipulated by love, or the interesting fact that Diana was the first girlfriend I had in my 15 years of existence. On the 6th of August, I received a message from Diana, saying that she was going to get operated on. I told her, "Everything will be okay, you are in good hands, nothing is going to hurt you." She thanked me, saying, "I am relaxed now, thanks 3. I replied with a simple, "You're welcome," and she responded with her always common but lovely, "I love you." Hey, my doctor says it's time. Now that I'm relaxed, I'm not worried anymore. CYA:// that was the last thing I heard from her that day. I couldn't sleep that night. I was very, very worried, instead of thinking she was fine. The next day after school, I went directly to my house, because fuck projects, went straight to log into the game. She was online. Yes, she is fine. "Hi Diana, how was it? What happened?" "Hi, I'm fine, you were right. Although I have pain in my chest, but nothing else. I was really worried about you, I didn't sleep last night. I promise I'm fine, don't worry." We started talking for a while about each other. Story: I have the most wonderful boyfriend. So, my birthday was on Tuesday. Generally, every year for my birthday, I celebrate the entire weekend, especially if my birthday lands on a weekend day that year. I'll go out to bars with my close friends, hang out with other people, and do different things on the days after or leading up to my birthday. Anyway, the last 6 to 8 months have been extremely rough for me. I've gone through a lot of changes. I've moved to different places, recently lost my job, had to move back home, and struggled to find fosters for my cats. It's a whole thing, and it's taken a huge toll on my mental health and well-being, as well as my general happiness. So, this year, I really wasn't excited for my birthday at all, which is extremely out of character for me, as I have always been maybe a little too excited about my birthday my entire life. I'm usually unable to shut up about my birthday, but this year, I didn't even really think about it and almost forgot about it up until about 5 days before. I had made loose plans with a cousin of mine to meet up at a restaurant bar near the beach with her and her friends and invited my friends in the group chat. When I checked in a few days later to see who was coming, just about everyone backed out. My boyfriend is also in this group chat, but he pretty much never interacts, so I often forget that he's even in there. Anyway, all of my friends backed out, and I didn't really care too much about it because it gave me an excuse to cancel these plans anyway, as I really just wasn't in the mood to do anything for my birthday. But I can't lie, my feelings were kind of hurt. Well, on Friday, I thought I was just going to have a nice quiet time with my boyfriend and his parents, but he ended up throwing me a surprise party with all of his friends. Apparently, after he saw that everyone had backed out in the group chat, he was pissed. He contacted all of his friends, who are kinda my friends too, I guess. I definitely know them and we've all hung out multiple times, and told them to come to his house to surprise me. I was super surprised, and I started crying. He just made me feel so loved and special. He also made me an incredible model of my dream cottage, which he designed all on his own. It's so beautiful and has a bunch of little details that are personal to us and our relationship. He worked on it for 7 months and presented it to me on the day of my birthday. It's so beautiful and has a bunch of little details that are personal to us and our relationship. I just wanted to share this because it's so sweet. I've been feeling really shitty for months, and he just wanted to see me happy. I'm so grateful for him. I hope everyone can find a partner who is this loving and thoughtful. Story, my love story that cannot be completed. It all began, maybe, 4 years ago. I've started noticing him in the hallways. But it wasn't something specific, I just really liked his looks. Then, 3 years ago happened something that I didn't expect at all. We started chatting through Telegram. To be honest, at that time I was a shy person, and moreover, I wasn't sure about my sexuality. We were just playing Genshin and messaging, nothing much. I still don't know what's gotten into me, but I offered to go out for a picnic in the city center. It was lovely, I opened up to him, we had a really deep conversation. We kept this up for a long time, and something changed after our visit to the cinema. I followed him to his house, and in the end he kissed me on the cheek. It was the first time ever when a guy did something that's special in my life. We were both nervous, and that's totally fine, I get it. Then, someday we went to his house, I met his mom and dad, they were great and welcoming. We went to his room, where our first kiss happened. That was unexpected, he caught me off guard, but I enjoyed it. The upcoming event was his birthday. LMAO, I remember how I was planning all those gifts and stuff. And the most precious thing was that he really liked them. After the celebration with his friends, he offered me to stay for a sleepover because it was too late outside. I was never on a sleepover before, and I was even afraid to ask her. But I did it, I called her and asked, and she answered yes. We spent the night together, nothing much happened, only a bit corny stuff. In a few days after that we started dating, I was on a cloud 9. We went out on a few days a month, and it felt amazing, really. There were some issues from my side due to traumas and being scared of abandonment, however, at some point he proved that he won't do such thing. But, I wasn't wrong, in a week he sent me video messages where he, while crying, said how sorry he was, and that we need to end this, and how scared he was about his parents finding out. I knew something was off, but I didn't want to push him. Somehow, I overcome my own problems just to understand his problems. I thought it was the end. In a month, in my country the war had started, and he was forced to move to another country. I don't know why, but we kept talking. I didn't what the point was of this chat. Then, we kinda stopped talking to each other, just maybe sent some TikToks, and that's all. In a few months he sent me a TikTok, followed with his crying video message. Of course, I got sad. I tried to comfort him, and I succeeded. After some time, he told me the real reason why we broke up. His sister found out, and told him to do this, or else she would have told his parents and his peaceful life would have been destroyed. All that time I thought that the breakup thing was my fault, but it wasn't. And there he was, offering our relationship back, but this time on distance. I loved him, that was the only reason why I agreed. It sucked. We had our relationship like for 2 months, and we were getting nowhere. He ended everything. I said to him that if he would ever again consider going back to me, he better be ready for it and he should have serious intentions. Half a year passed by, and here was summer. I was in a relationship with other guy. I was kind of happy. One night, I had a dream with my partner and my ex at that time. I was walking into the room, where my birthday party was held with my partner holding my hand. And there he was, saying miss me? I woke up like from the nightmare. And the next day he sent me a TikTok at 4 a.m. So you would understand, no contact for 6 months, and then a TikTok? This TikTok meant a lot to me, it broke me into pieces. You know that movie, Inside Out? And that core memory stuff? The TikTok said that I will always be there. Here I was, crying in my bed in the morning. I'm a tough guy, thanks to my parents, I'm not used to cry. But I was desperate, I was in a relationship. And I was still in love with my ex. For 3 days I was suffering, not able to tell any of my friends because it felt wrong. In a few days I broke down in front of my partner and told him the truth. The thing is that sometimes I become crazy and obsessed with some kind of idea. You are going to understand it really soon. Okay, it took me a week to break up with the current partner, but I told him the truth. Then, I contacted my ex, I was curious about how he was doing. Well, through the chat I could see that he was glad about it. Later he told me that he was thinking about texting me. So, it was mutual. Long story short, my crazy idea was to move for studying in the same country where he lives. When I told him about it, at first he was shocked, then he was helping me with every step, and offered to live with him. My parents supported that idea, they didn't know, and I haven't told them yet. So, yes, basically, in 2 months I moved in. We had our awaited conversation. But the result wasn't amusing. So, he told me about his sex adventures through Grindr here. And also he told me that he cheated on me while we were distantly dating. Again, he was apologizing. At that moment I forgave him, because I didn't feel like that mattered. I didn't feel like dating when he cheated. Then he threw a bomb at me, and said that he doesn't want to date for now. He wanted to, but changed his mind a few days ago. I was like away. I was really disappointed. I was stuck with him. He was close and at the same time far away. I asked him, "Are you sure?" He answered that he was. I asked him to give me guarantees that he wouldn't ever want to have a relationship with me. He said that he couldn't do it. So yes, I was left with nothing, again. Now, what's the main issue? I live with him every day of my life. It would be okay if we weren't close. But right now it is a common thing for him to lay on my knees, to fall asleep on them, to lay on my shoulder, to watch serials together, to go to the cinema together, to go to a party together, to travel together, and to make plans for the future together. In the meantime, he still goes out on hookups through Grindr. And he's proud about it. I worry about my mental state and his. By the way, it also looks like he's proud about cheating on me. But he won't keep away from me. If you read everything, thank you, I really appreciate it. Story: Finding Strength in Solitude. In the bustling city of Seattle lived a man named Daniel. At 33, Daniel was a successful architect known for his innovative designs and attention to detail. He lived in a stylish apartment downtown and enjoyed a life filled with friends, hobbies, and adventures. Despite his fulfilling life, there was one question that seemed to follow him everywhere: why are you still single? Daniel had been in a few serious relationships over the years, but none had worked out. His friends were mostly married or in long-term relationships, and family gatherings often involved subtle, and not so subtle, comments about his single status. While these remarks stung, Daniel was determined not to let them define his happiness. One rainy afternoon, Daniel decided to take a break from his hectic schedule and visit a small, cozy cafe he had recently discovered. As he sipped his coffee and watched the raindrops race down the window, he reflected on his life. He realized that he had always been someone who found joy in solitude and personal growth. He decided to embrace his single life and focus on the things that made him happy. Daniel started by making a list of personal goals and adventures he wanted to embark on. At the top of his list was a solo trip to Iceland, a place he had always dreamed of visiting. A month later, Daniel found himself standing on the black sand beaches of Vik, feeling the cool Atlantic breeze against his face. The breathtaking landscapes, with their glaciers, waterfalls, and volcanic formations, filled him with a sense of awe and wonder. During his travels, Daniel met other solo adventurers from around the world. He bonded with a fellow traveler named Sophie, who was also exploring Iceland on her own. They shared stories of their journeys and dreams, forming a friendship that enriched their experiences. Sophie admired Daniel's courage to travel alone and pursue his passions, and their conversations helped Daniel see the beauty in his solitary path. Back in Seattle, Daniel returned to his routine with a renewed sense of purpose. He threw himself into his work, taking on challenging projects that pushed the boundaries of his creativity. He also took up photography, capturing the city's architectural marvels and natural beauty through his lens. His photos garnered attention, and he was invited to exhibit his work at a local gallery. One evening, while attending the opening of his photo exhibition, Daniel ran into an old college friend, Kevin. They hadn't seen each other in years and quickly fell into an easy conversation. Kevin was intrigued by Daniel's stories of solo travel and personal growth. They exchanged numbers and began meeting up for coffee and hikes, enjoying each other's company without any pressure or expectations. As months passed, Daniel's life continued to flourish. He found joy in his solitude and fulfillment in his pursuits. He and Kevin grew closer, and their friendship deepened into something more. Daniel appreciated that their relationship was built on mutual respect and understanding, allowing both of them to maintain their independence while sharing their lives. One day, as they stood on a hilltop overlooking the city, Kevin turned to Daniel and said, "Daniel, being with you feels like an adventure. I admire your strength and the way you've embraced your life. I'm glad we reconnected." Daniel smiled, feeling a sense of contentment and clarity. "Thank you, Kevin. I'm glad too. But remember, our happiness comes from within. We're choosing to share our journeys, not complete them." In the end, Daniel's story was not about finding love in the traditional sense, but about discovering and embracing himself. He had learned that being single at 30 was not a state of lack, but a canvas for creating a fulfilling and meaningful existence. His journey was a testament to the power of self-love, independence, and the endless possibilities that lay ahead when one embraces life wholeheartedly. Story: Single and Thriving with a Best Friend. In the vibrant city of Chicago, lived a man named Max. At 31, Max was a successful graphic designer, known for his creativity and dedication. He lived in a trendy apartment downtown and had a close-knit group of friends. Among them, his best friend, Jenna, stood out. Jenna was not only his confidant, but also his partner in all adventures. Both Max and Jenna were single and often found themselves discussing the societal pressures they faced regarding their relationship status. One sunny Saturday, Max and Jenna decided to spend the day exploring the city. They started with brunch at their favorite cafe, where they enjoyed their usual eggs Benedict and lattes. As they sat by the window, Jenna brought up a recent family gathering. "You know, my aunt asked me again why I'm still single," Jenna said, rolling her eyes. "I told her I'm happy with my life as it is, but she just didn't get it." Max nodded sympathetically. "I get the same questions all the time. It's like people think we need to be in a relationship to be complete." Max and Jenna cherished their independence. Being single allowed them to make spontaneous plans without having to consider a partner's schedule. They could travel, take on new hobbies, and focus on their careers without compromise. "Remember our impromptu road trip to Nashville last month?" Max grinned. "We decided on a whim and had the best time." "That's the kind of freedom I love." Jenna laughed. "Exactly. And we didn't have to check in with anyone else. Just packed our bags and went." Max and Jenna's friendship was a cornerstone of their lives. They supported each other through thick and thin, creating a bond that was both deep and unwavering. They invested time and effort into their friendship, making it as fulfilling as any romantic relationship. "Do you remember how you helped me prepare for that big presentation?" Jenna asked. "I was so nervous, but your pep talk made all the difference." Max smiled. "Of course. And you were there for me when I launched my freelance business. I couldn't have done it without your support." Both Max and Jenna had a wide range of interests. Max loved photography and spent weekends capturing the city's beauty, while Jenna was passionate about cooking and often experimented with new recipes. Being single gave them the time and space to fully engage in their hobbies. "I've started a photo series on urban landscapes," Max said, showing Jenna some recent shots on his phone. "It's been so rewarding to dive into this project." Jenna nodded. "And I'm taking a pastry class next week. It's something I've always wanted to do, and now I have the time." Max and Jenna valued their financial independence. They made their own financial decisions, from saving for future goals to indulging in personal treats. This autonomy allowed them to live life on their terms. "I've been saving up for a solo trip to Japan," Max shared. "I'm planning to go next spring." "That's amazing," Jenna exclaimed. "I've been thinking about investing in a small food truck business. I want to bring my culinary creations to more people." For Max and Jenna, happiness wasn't defined by their relationship status. They found joy in their accomplishments, their friendship, and the adventures they shared. They believed that being single allowed them to live authentically and pursue their true passions without external pressures. "Happiness isn't about fitting into someone else's expectations," Max said. "It's about living a life that feels right for us." Jenna agreed. We're creating our own paths, and that's what matters. As Max and Jenna walked through the city, enjoying the day in each other's company, they felt a sense of contentment. Their journey of embracing singlehood and supporting each other was a testament to the power of friendship, independence, and living authentically. Max and Jenna's story serves as a reminder that being single is not a problem to be fixed, but a choice to be celebrated. It's an opportunity to grow, pursue passions, and build meaningful relationships on their own terms. For them, singlehood is not a state of lack, but a canvas for creating a rich and fulfilling life. Bye and see you again in the next videos and stories.